Far Cry 5 is the latest iteration in Ubisoft's open-world action series. In the past, the franchise has explored exotic islands, the wilds of Africa, Himalayan mountains, and then offshoots like Primal even time traveled to the Mesolithic Age, and Blood Dragon tackled 1980s crazy action tropes. Far Cry 5 brings the franchise back home a little bit, taking place in Hope County, Montana, where a new cult called Eden's Gate is gearing up for their own special brand of apocalypse. We got our hands on some early copies of the game, we played through it, we have thoughts, we want to share them, and frankly just talk about the game, because it's coming out tomorrow.
Yep.
The game is developed by Ubisoft Montreal and Toronto, published by Ubisoft. It's releasing PC, Xbox One, PS4. I played it on Xbox One. You played it on PS4. So we have different platforms. It also means that we couldn't co-op, which is a shame.
Yeah, it's a shame. At some point I'll try co-op out.
But we did get to play through what I think a lot of people buy Far Cry for, which is the single player.
Yeah, messing around in single player.
And it's very much Far Cry. I haven't played a lot of Far Cry games in the past. Last week we talked about Ni no Kuni, and I was the Ni no Kuni fanatic, and you'd never played it before.
Yeah.
We're sort of swapping roles this time. You've played a bunch of the Far Cry games. You know it as a franchise better than I do, and I'm looking at it sort of a little bit fresher, so I don't always know what's new to the franchise and what's time-honored tradition.
Yeah.
So we're approaching it from slightly different perspectives, I think.
This is definitely a Far Cry game, but it is they've changed a lot of the minutia of the game to be less repetitive and a little more interesting. They did a lot of changes a lot of people wouldn't notice that I didn't even think about. They removed the mini-map. I didn't realize, and I didn't miss it, and it was fine.
It's got a really minimal UI, which I love, because it does put the world front and center.
Yeah.
And the world is beautiful.
Yep.
So for those who, like me, have not kept up on the Far Cry games, it's a open world action game, some RPG elements in that you can perform. You go and you complete challenges, and then you earn points towards perks, which you can use to increase your health or make it so that if one of your companions is injured, they can return faster, or you can carry more ammunition, or you can breathe underwater longer. So there are some light RPG elements there, but mostly it focuses on action and world traversal and all the crazy shenanigans that you can get up to.
Yeah, and in the previous games, there was a crafting system which you would do for things like, hey, you want a bigger ammo pouch? Go hunt 14 deer, and you'll craft a bigger ammo pouch. And there was generally tiers, if you want an even bigger ammo pouch, go hunt 14 elk or whatever. In this game, it's all been boiled down to here's a perk list. And it's not even a perk tree. In the previous games, there was skill trees, which would allow you to unlock things like chain combos and things like that. In this game, it's just if you have enough points, you can unlock that perk, with the exception of one or two things, like health. It's if you want 150% health, or 200% health, you have to unlock to 150% first. And they've completely removed the crafting system. The crafting system was, it at first in the previous games it was fun, but then it felt like a grind. You had to go find these 14 different animals, kill them, then go find the next 14, and it became a huge time sink just to get a bigger ammo pouch. And in this game, it's do you want to have a bigger ammo pouch immediately? Buy the perk.
There is some light crafting, but it's mostly things like sticks of dynamite.
Yeah,
and you do that from your weapon wheel, which, by the way, is one of the only real criticisms I have of the game, and it's a light criticism, but in order to manage your weapons, so you push in the button, bring up the wheel, and then you can use the right stick to select whatever category you want. So say it's a melee weapon, you can be carrying 2 or 3 melee weapons, and that's how you cycle. You have to select that, and then you use the D-pad to select between them. It's just not very elegant. And I get that they're limited by the controller interface.
Yeah.
But some of it takes getting used to. Once you get used to it, you don't really think about it. But at first, it's a little bit inelegant.
Yeah, I would say what you're talking about is that there's sub-menus on melee weapons and throwable weapons, so that you can select between the different ones. And I agree that it's a little bit clunky. I think the solution to that would have been just pause time when you're selecting a weapon, which I feel like should be in any game with a weapon wheel. Time should freeze for a second.
But in this case, it does not. The game has a bunch of what I understand to be pretty new features. This is the first time you create your own character, which again you don't see unless you die.
I think
So I did
man,
see
that
some
was
of my character.
that was a super weird. I don't mind creating a character, but you're totally like silent protagonist. You don't really. You're not. You're just referred to as Rook or Deputy.
Which I like. They get around that pretty well because everyone just calls you Rook.
Yeah, but it's like you don't have any personality, and that's fine. It's just it is a departure. Like there really isn't that much character creation.
That's true.
And
Although
I
once you
would've
start
just-
to get into co-op, it's
Yeah.
nice to have an avatar that feels a little bit more like yours, even if you're not the one seeing it.
Yeah, in the previous games, co-op was like in Far Cry 4, you would play as one of the side characters. Like if you play as like Nick if you were co-oping with a friend instead of playing your own character.
Right. Also, they updated or kind of like replaced the guns for hire system that I understand was in Far Cry 4. So there's a system in this game where you can hire on someone to go with you and help you out, and as you level up, you can get two someones.
Yep.
And we saw Boomer the dog featured very heavily in the E3 stuff. Boomer and his hustle sticks. And so. That was the first thing I went for, of course. But they're human specialists. So there's a sniper, there's a doctor, there's Nick with his plane. There are a couple of them, but I feel like for the most part they're wasted because if I can have a pet cougar, a pet grizzly bear, or a pet dog, that's what I'm going for first.
I agree. The moment you unlock a bear, you're not going to use a dude.
Just like some random dude.
Yeah.
Although with the system they set up, it is pretty cool if you choose to use it. In that different people, it's just people you encounter throughout the world. Maybe you rescue them from a hostage situation. Maybe you come across them, and you're talking to them, and you can hire them. They all have different abilities. So some of them may help you get better loot. Some of them may help to revive your pet buddies. Some of them they've all got different specialties and like different things they can do. So that is pretty cool, but I don't feel like any of them are as good as any of the specialists. So once I got a specialist, and the specialists are called out like right there on the map, go here and get one of these guys.
Yep.
I just never bothered with the normal dudes. Overall, honestly, there's a lot of stuff just like in the base game that I really enjoyed. So, like I said, I'm not. I like open world games. I like the Skyrims. I like that kind of game. But for some reason, never really dove too much into Far Cry.
Mm-hmm.
And this Far Cry, I liked. I thought I wasn't gonna like it particularly, but the initial story hook was really solid.
Yeah.
I feel like movement's good. I never feel like I want to jump, but end up grabbing something instead. A traversal feels really good. Being able to just jump in a boat or a helicopter or a plane and take off and go do something crazy is a lot of fun.
I loved Far Cry 3. I thought it was like... I had played Far Cry 1 and Far Cry 2. Both of those were pretty different games. And Far Cry 3 kind of came out of nowhere for me, and I played the crap out of it, and I was in love with it. But when Far Cry 4 came out, it sort of felt like the same game almost to a T. Like there was some new stuff added, but like not enough to make it feel like a separate game, and I felt kind of burned. So I wouldn't say I was optimistic going into this Far Cry, and I was kind of gripped immediately. Like you said, the intro is really strong.
It's really powerful. It sets up the world. It sets up the antagonist in a way that I think is really powerful. Far Cry, one of the things that everyone loved about Far Cry 3, and I think this is what made that game really powerful for a lot of people, is the antagonist, Voss.
Yeah, he was absolutely. He was one of the best video game antagonists like ever.
And I think that Ubisoft struggled to recapture that magic in Far Cry 4, but in this, Joseph Seed, the father, I believe it. I believe his clear-eyed fanaticism, and he is terrifying, but also kind of charismatic and compelling.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what they need in that sort of powerful antagonist, and I think they nailed it.
When you get into the game, pretty much right away, unlike previous Far Cry games where you go to one area and then like halfway through you unlock a whole other area. In this game, you get dropped in the middle, and it's like you can go to any one of the areas, and there's 3 total big sections. It encourages you to go to Holland Valley, I think is what it's called. And I think there's kind of multiple reasons for that. First off, that area is such a good setting because it's it's Montana. There's farmland. There's rolling hills.
Absolutely
there's,
beautiful.
There's like pine trees. There's cute little farmhouses, and there's set pieces and like visually like stunning things in the first area. Like I got to the pumpkin field and I was like, holy shit! There's an area with like just like
the apple orchard.
Yes.
Yes.
I was like, what? This is amazing looking. Like there were so many moments early on in that first area that I thought were like kind of unbelievable. Just from a visual standpoint and like just a character standpoint. It looks so great. And in that first area, you'll find I don't want to say specifics, but tons of like really goofy and compelling side stuff to do, like quests that are like I just did not expect.
Yeah, you can race through the story if you want to, build up your resistance points, which is how you advance the story, is by running around and either destroying cult property or liberating outposts or rescuing hostages and so on. And so you build up your points, and then you can advance through the story of that particular region. And you can do that if you want to, or you can get completely sidetracked. And you still earn some resistance points for doing a lot of the side stuff, but that's not the main draw of them.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of crazy side stories with a lot of crazy characters that are a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's like, I think each area has like 30 to 40 missions total in the areas. And they'll tell you in the map when you zoom out, like how much of those you've done.
So if you're a completionist, you know if you have fully done everything there is to do in a specific region.
Yeah. One of a huge change to this game, and they sort of called it out, was in the first game, in the previous games, there was like your map was completely filled with stuff. Like it was not overwhelming is like the wrong word. It was like complete overload. Like your map would have dots for where you could fight specific deer, where every outpost was, where every single collectible in the game was, like even gathering, it would be like, here's a flower, like every flower had a leaf on it. Like it was nuts, the amount of stuff you had to look at on your map. And in this game, it's very minimalist. You look at the map and here's where your quests are. And if you see a road sign, it'll tell you like, hey, there's a hunting area over here. And it'll very subtly mark the map. It's not big, and it never feels overloaded. And that is a completely welcome change.
But there is also stuff to do around every corner.
Yeah, no, but in this game, instead of like I know exactly where I'm going. I'm going to point A to find this thing. Like in this game, there's actual exploration. Like you'll be walking along the road, and there'll be a guy that's being held at gunpoint by cultists, and if you save him, he'll tell you where a prepper stash is. And prepper stashes are like little hidden, like people were preparing for the apocalypse or whatever, and they had a little secret bunker, and you got to figure out how to get in it or how to navigate to it. And
so in its way, it's like a little puzzle, and you solve the puzzle,
Yeah.
you get into the prepper stash, and then you get equipment.
Yeah, and I felt like, especially with Holland Valley, I was compelled to do not everything, but almost everything. Like just walk around, talk to people, save the people on the road, do the prepper stashes. And it was a really great introduction to the game, and I think people should start there. I know the game recommends it, but I think people really should start there. As I got to the later areas of the game, not the later areas, the other areas, because you can go to them at any time, I felt like they had, like the top left area, for example, is mountains, and it's mostly, there's a big lake in the middle, and it's mostly like just trees and hills, and there's not as many like visually pleasing like set pieces. I did see some in Faith's area with like the not the geysers, but what is that, like the
hot springs?
The hot springs, that's what it is. But I definitely felt like the most love was put into Holland Valley. And maybe I'm wrong. I haven't fully explored all of the areas at all, so maybe they're all going to be, just as loved. But Holland Valley for me was such a good first impression.
Another thing too is because you do spend a lot of time just exploring, wandering around, maybe you're driving, whatever it is, I feel like they did a great job with the audio design because it's really quiet and ambient when it needs to be, but they use audio as well to really help build the world. So say you get in you destroy a couple of cultists, you take off with one of their trucks, and it's going to be playing their version of hymns. But if you listen to the lyrics of the hymns, they're all doomsday.
Yeah.
And it's, gets really sort of just eerie and weird, but you can change the radio station to a bunch of different kinds of music, and there are a couple of Black Rebel Motorcycle Club is in there, which I love. El King is in there, which I love. So maybe I'm biased because I heard a couple of my favorite artists and was like, yeah.
Yeah.
But I felt like the music selection really helped set the tone of the world. And if you're out just wandering around, the sort of ambient sound design like really immersed me.
They have like classic rock throwbacks. They have like 2000s alt rock stuff. They have the Vines in there, man. I don't know when the last time I heard Get Free was, but it's in this game. There's a lot to it. Sometimes I feel like I need to listen to the radio because the radio has like people talking, and sometimes they say like story related stuff, and you could totally miss that. And I really did for a lot of the game because I wasn't driving around in cars. I was using my helicopter, and my helicopter's dope. So
I think I'm planning on doing as many of the side quests in this game. I'm sorry, side missions, but I'm not trying to complete an area 100% before I move on to another area.
Gotcha.
I figure end game I'll just go back and do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
When I have plenty of time to faff about.
I've definitely not been 100%ing the areas. I did the most in Holland Valley, but I love the farmland setting a lot. One thing in this game, in previous Far Cry games, and I'm sorry to keep making the comparison, but it's important if you've already played the past games and feel burnt out. One of the things you did was there was like dozens and dozens and dozens of outposts, and there's like a few on every map. But I felt like in the first in 4 and 3, all you were doing was clearing outposts, and it would be the same. Like it became very trite. Like you'd walk up and you'd have your sniper, and you'd be silenced, and you'd take them out as silently as you could, and that was clearing outposts. And like that was all you did. In this game, you can just avoid the outposts if you don't want to take them. Like seriously, and I've only taken like 5 or 6, and I've played for a lot of hours.
Really, I take everyone I come across. For me, it's very satisfying when you clear an outpost and then all of the people move back in.
It's great.
The good
it's
dudes,
great.
they're pulling down the cult flags, and they're hoisting up the American flag, and now they're putting out the apples for sale.
And you see the cow walk into the camera and look at you. It's
yeah.
It's
So
great.
There's just something very satisfying about that to me. So I cleared every outpost I could.
If I had one major complaint about the game, it's that it forces you to do like repetitive story missions out of the blue, and you don't have an option to stop. Do you know what I'm referring to?
I do. Yes.
Yeah. How did you? What was your take on those?
I was definitely surprised by it. There was a moment where I got into this interaction. It clearly turned out to be a story advancement, but I got into an interaction. I was trying to fight my way through it, but in the end, it was unwinnable. In a game that is all about doing whatever you like, that is a little bit of a dissonant note, but it was so minor for my overall enjoyment that I didn't hold too much of a grudge. But I do know what you're talking about, because when it happened, I was like, what the hell? But then the story picked up, and I thought, oh, okay, well, this is why this happened.
Yeah.
So I at least understood.
There is like in the top left area specifically, they take you through. They whisk you away to this mission multiple times. I think a total of like 4 times, and there's a reason for it. But it's basically the same thing over and over. And it's so frustrating to just be like, I just want to go kill stuff. And as you're killing stuff, suddenly you're yanked away and you can't stop this thing. So minor complaint, but it is a huge nuisance in a game that like just wants you to do whatever you want, man. You go have fun, you enjoy yourself. But other than that, not a huge deal.
Well, while we're on the topic of complaints, there are microtransactions in this game, which we haven't touched on yet, really. There are certain things in the game that you can purchase either with your in-game currency, with your dollars, or with silver bars. And silver bars can be found in the world. They can be found in outposts and such. Or you can just buy them.
Yeah.
Now, when we were playing, the store to buy them wasn't active, so I don't actually know what the prices of the things are. But we may want to have a look when the store comes up and see how much things translate to in real life. Because you can just go and you can buy the best chopper in the game.
Yeah.
If you want to, immediately.
I have a feeling, and this is just an impression from previous games, but I have a feeling it's going to be like $20 gets you 2,000 bars, and like a chopper's like 400 bars. That said, if you get like the deluxe edition of the game, which is probably also more money, I'm not 100% sure on that, but I received a copy that had included weapons and vehicles and things like that, and like to the point I had to like hold myself back because it gave me like a 50 cal sniper rifle, and in the previous games that was my go-to. I would just hide in it before Outposts and use my 50 cal sniper rifle and blow shit up. So I didn't even use that, but it gave me like stuff like a fucking attack helicopter, and I did use that. It was fucking great. But like that stuff you could just buy for whatever the bar's value is, and that is, I mean, that is pay to win. It's definitely not necessary.
Is it pay to win with a single player game?
I mean, it's pay for. It is pay for convenience.
It's like pay to not play.
Right. It's pay to avoid gaining the money.
Which, you know, in a single player game, it is balance changing. It is affecting gameplay. It's not a purely cosmetic thing, but it's also in an environment where the only experience you're going to fuck up is your own.
Right.
But it is worth noting that microtransactions are in the game. I don't feel like there's anything that I'm unable to buy on my own.
Yeah, I don't feel cheated out of items.
The existence of microtransactions in single player games bothers me because you always think in the back of your mind, are they trying to drive me to just spend this money instead? Is it going to be a super grind fest? I don't feel like they did that. Shadow of War got dinged pretty bad for having one of the later chapters of the game basically be a grind fest if you didn't want to pay extra to skip it, essentially, or to shorten it. So I didn't get that feeling from this.
Yeah, I never felt like I needed any of those items, any of the prestige stuff. Not only like do the skins not really matter to me, but like you will still get that stuff as you play the game, and like it doesn't even, and you'll still get like the equivalent without the skin in a reasonable amount of time, and nothing is like. You're not gated at all. If you for some reason you want a cool a cool outfit that you'll never see, and you want to spend like $4 or whatever it's going to cost, go for it. But it doesn't really affect the gameplay, which is good.
One thing we didn't hit on earlier, we were talking about like all the things to do. It is also not limited to going against the like fighting the cult. There's also a ton of stuff that is completely unrelated if you just want to mess around. Things like the Clutch Nixon challenges, which are basically stunts that are scattered around the country. Clutch Nixon was this crazy famous stuntman in the area, and he did all these wacky stunts that have been commemorated and written down for posterity, and you can try and take on those challenges. Yeah, and they're all just ridiculous stunts.
Yeah, they definitely had like wingsuit challenges and some of that stuff in the previous games. I feel like the presentation here is great. It's an explosion on the screen with the eagles and the American flag. This game is very American. I was getting attacked by a bald eagle at one point, and my internal self was like, "But I'm American."
You can't do this to me. There's also you can do hunting. So there are a couple alternative paths to just kill 10 people with a sniper rifle, kill 10 people with a shotgun, and so on to complete challenges to unlock perks. There's also hunting challenges, so if you want to try and hunt down and skin a certain number of bears or deer or moose or whatever, or if you want to try and break the state record for fishing, there's a ton of fishing spots, and I did some of the fishing. It's actually very nice.
Yeah, it's fly fishing. Very interesting.
There are a couple weird bugs in the game. It happens in just about every open world game. I didn't get anything that was game breaking. I did get a couple of weird things that would happen occasionally. Like I would die and then respawn somewhere weird that seemed very much not the game's intention, or some animal would react weird or not react.
Oh, so that is a huge problem for me personally. The game has fantastic combat. Like the gunplay is super addicting. Shooting people with arrows in the head and hearing that thunk, and like even any of the guns feel great. With the exception, I found that enemies that take multiple hits, like cult VIPs and animals, when you shoot them, they don't have any hit reaction whatsoever, to the point where I feel like I'm not hitting them. Like I have I have a lot of video of like me.
So say they're charging you, you shoot them, they don't recoil.
Nope. Like a cougar will be charging me. I'm like bang, bang, and it just doesn't matter until I get the kill shot. It falls over, and the same goes for Cult VIPs. And it's sort of a bizarre feeling where in a game where all the weapons feel so weighty and purposeful, to shoot someone and have nothing happen, it's like it doesn't exist.
I think the last thing that we should really cover off is the story. Now there has been a lot of pre-launch concern about this game, about the politicization. A lot of people concerned that it was going to be a very anti-alt-right message or very anti-Christian message, and the cult it's a Christian cult.
Yeah, they
Christian-ish.
definitely. They never specifically like say that, you know, they never say the words Jesus or the Bible, but they definitely refer to.
They do, but it's when you're interacting with them, you never think, oh look, Christians. You think, oh my God, crazy fucking cultists. In fact, there's a church pastor who's on your side, who is trying to help you. So I don't feel like it is presented anti-Christian.
No, it feels anti-cult.
It's anti-cult. It's anti-extremist.
Yeah. I can see how some people would like pull some political opinion from this game. Yeah,
well, there are a couple digs, but they seem to be made rather generically because this game's been in development for years.
Right.
The writer was saying it's based more on separatist concerns from the Cold War.
Interesting.
Although you were telling me about a documentary as well that the writer referred to from Oregon about a cult.
So there's before you play this game, if you wanted to watch Wild Wild Country, that might be the best primer for this game ever. It's about a cult that they don't consider themselves a cult, but it's a group of people that bought a plot of land in Oregon, started making a town, and then there was like a revolt against them, and they started like poisoning everyone, and it's fucking crazy. And
that's on what, Netflix?
It's on Netflix, but it's like, it's not nearly the same story. But watching that and then playing this, I was like, I'm in. I want to see what's going on with this cult.
They do a really good job, especially in the opening, of setting up the story so you feel like you believe it. Because it can be a little bit difficult to suspend that disbelief of, oh right, just this machine gun cult pops up and no one's gonna come and do anything. Right. But they do a pretty good job of at least setting up your suspension of disbelief. You can poke some holes in it pretty easily if you want to.
Yeah.
Especially if you've got helicopters and planes.
Yeah. I don't know why they don't just leave. But that's a whole other problem. I think that the beginning of the game, the setup of the story for me was great, and I felt like as it went on, I wasn't necessarily connected to any of the characters, and I saw what they were trying to do with the storylines of each of the brothers and sisters.
I think they called them the Heralds.
The Heralds, but I didn't really feel any connection to those, and I felt like for the most part the exposition was a guy in your face talking to you through the forced missions, and
it was. Although I found
I'm not 100% sold on it.
You're not into that?
I would have liked a little more ability for you to sympathize with the cult, and they kind of do that in the beginning with him, where like you can almost see where he's coming from, but really you're like, no, he's a crazy motherfucker. But I would have liked like sort of of like, I don't know. Maybe they are right. Maybe we should be preparing for the apocalypse, but they're so extreme and so crazy that you have no ability to be like, I can see where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's almost like when they talk to you in that really calm, gentle horse whisperer voice that they sound so reasonable. But then you see everything that they're doing, and that's just out the window.
Yeah.
But overall, I really liked it. If you had to do it all over again, would you play it immediately? Would you wait for it to hit a subscription service, or wait for a sale, or wait for, I don't know, a price drop? Or would you skip it? Sort of
complicated explanation. I feel like if you haven't played a Far Cry game, but you're into the idea of an open world combat and fuck around fun sandbox game, 100% buy it, because this is like such a perfect. I feel like this is almost a perfect Far Cry game. with a few minor exceptions. It's extremely fun. There's a lot of good comedy in there. There's a ton of stuff to do and a lot of freedom to do whatever you want. So in that aspect, I think it's like kind of a perfect Far Cry game. Not a perfect game, but a perfect Far Cry game. If you've already played like 3, 4 Primal Blood Dragon and you maybe feel like you're a little tired of the formula, this does rework the formula in a lot of ways, but at its core, it still has the bones of a Far Cry game. That being said, I was in that boat and I still really dug this game, so maybe consider, but I would lean towards buying it even if you're on the fence and you've already played the games.
Yeah, same. If you're not into open world action games, if that sounds like it would bore the hell out of you, give it a skip.
Yep.
Because that is very much what this game is.
Yeah.
But even as someone who doesn't really play Far Cry games but likes open world as a style, I really dug this game. I liked it a bunch. I'm planning on spending a lot more time with it and completing all of the little things that I missed. There's Far Cry Arcade, which we didn't talk about too much because it's more like player-generated levels and mini campaigns. You can do either solo or you can do co-op or do multiplayer, and that's going to be. I think that'll give the game a lot of longevity for people who like that. So that's all great. Lots of replayability in that, although I think once you've completed this game, you don't necessarily need to come back to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's co-op and there's cooperative and there's also like multiplayer competitive maps in there, but because we're pre-release, we didn't really get to see what the
Empty
good
servers.
stuff was. Yeah, so...
we're not passing judgment on the multiplayer at all.
No, not yet, but hopefully co-op is good. Because you can this is also the first game where you can co-op all of the missions, whereas in the previous
Basically,
games it was very restricted.
You get through the intro, and you can from the finish of the intro, you can co-op the entire game.
Yeah, which is great.
I'm absolutely gonna go back in and play it again. If you like open world action type games, even if you're not sure you are into a shooter, consider giving it a chance. You don't need to give it a chance right now. If you are not sure that this kind of game is for you, feel free to wait. But if you've been intrigued, you think it's up your alley, it's a good game. It's solid.
Yeah,
They do a lot of things right. There's a couple stumbles here and there, but overall, I think they did a really good job.
I think it's a really good Far Cry game.
So let us know if you're planning on picking the game up, if this discussion helped you make a decision at all, and what you think of the game when you play it in the comments down below. And for more videos like this, as well as all kinds of game news and tips and podcasts and all that stuff, make sure that you like this video and subscribe to the Now.
Cult will never break us.